Hey guys, Julian here from synthwavepro.com. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. So in this synthwave tutorial, we are going to explore a few tips for creating compelling synth lead and guitar solos. All right, so be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can later reference this tutorial because we are going to be covering quite a bit of information. Also, if you wish to support the channel, please check out some of the links in the description. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, guys, so let's get started here. I wanted to focus a little more on improvisational techniques. Some of us want to learn how to create compelling guitar solos or maybe a synth lead solos. I've done some tutorials on some melodies, but I think with improvisation, it's a little different. All right, so let's get started here. This is the passage we're going to be analyzing here. I'll just go ahead and play it and then we can dive in a little deeper. All right, pretty straightforward here. What we're gonna do here is break down what exactly is going on with this guitar solo. And I wanna leave you guys with some techniques that you can start to apply immediately and not be intimidated by chords, chord scales, and melodies and all that jazz, all right? So I think the best way to go about this is to, first of all, let's go ahead and create another MIDI channel. And just for the sake of this tutorial, I am going to be inserting a stock piano here. I think it's just easier to speak over instead of having these wailing guitars. I'm gonna take the guitar improv line here and bring it down below. This will be our piano line. I'm gonna color code this. So the blue stuff here is the piano, and of course the pink will be our guitar. And then we can basically make this a little easier for us to understand. So first things first, I know we don't really want to deal with music theory too much, but this will make sense. So this passage is pretty much comprised of 4 chords. So let me really quickly just insert what those chords are. The first one being a C minor 7th chord. The second one being an A flat major 7th here. Third one is an F minor 7th chord, and then finally we are repeating that A flat major 7th chord here. All right, so 4 chords, we are repeating the sequence over and over again, and we are pretty much basing this guitar solo on these 4 chords. Now, if you want to completely ignore the chord changes down below and focus on one scale, I know a lot of guitar players who do that. That's absolutely fine. You can basically establish a solo using the C minor or C natural minor scale. So let's focus on this passage here. What do we have going on here? Well, let's use the piano as a reference. It's a polyphonic instrument, so it won't sound the same, but we'll get the idea of what's going on. All right, so right off the rip here, we're using this 4-note sequence. We are repeating that sequence, and then we have this brief sort of turnaround here. And so the notes are C, B flat, G, F, okay? So we're playing this in quick succession. You'll hear a lot of guitar players doing this. This is I guess an easy way of saying, hey, this is the part of the song that features the guitar solo, all right? So that's what we have going on here. And then finally, we have this turnaround here. Now, I've talked a lot about melody construction, improvisational techniques. I like to use a certain number for phrasing out an idea. So in this context, right off the rip, I'm using 4 notes and I'm repeating them and then followed by a turnaround. Later on, the second part here, once we get to that A flat major 7, I'm still applying this sort of repeated motif here. This time I'm using 5 notes, taga taga ta, taga taga ta, 1 2 3 4 5, right? And I'm repeating it. And here's a turnaround. So again, little motif, repeatable motif, followed by a turnaround, okay? This is how I'm building out this particular solo here. Let's go to this third chord here, the F minor. Here I've decided to use 3 notes. Okay, let me start this a little earlier ahead because I'm actually starting the phrase before the 1, so before the downbeat. 1, 2, 3. All right, so here I'm using 3 notes to sort of push the melodic content forward. We went from 4 notes here, we went to 5 notes, right? 5 repetitive notes, and here we're starting off another idea, another melodic sequence using 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. With a turnaround, and then finally we are ending this off with another 3-note motif. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so again, if you're lacking ideas, you don't know how to formulate a guitar solo, this is one way of doing it. You want to break down your entire sequence into smaller segments, as we've done here. We have 4, and we're pretty much using a combination of repeatable motifs, 4 notes, 5 notes, 3 notes, it's your choice, followed by a turnaround. And we're doing the same thing here, here, and here. All right, so I want to leave you guys with some techniques that you can instantly apply to start getting your head around improvisation. So let's take this first chord here, our C minor 7th chord. And one of the things that's really important to understand is the scale tone. So let's go ahead and outline this particular scale. I'm going to start way down here. So the C minor or natural minor starts off with the C, followed by a D, then E flat, even though it's written D sharp, it's technically E flat, followed by the F, the G, the A flat, B flat, and then finally the C. All right, so let me move this over here. I have some automation here, so it's going to sound a little wonky, and let's see what this scale sounds like. All right, easy peasy. All right, so it's important to note that throughout this entire sequence, the underlying chord is the C minor 7th chord, right? So that would be this note. This note gets muted. We don't play the D. The second note of our C minor 7th chord would be the E flat. So we'll leave that active. This F gets muted. The G, which is the 5th of our chord, that stays active. The A flat we can mute. And finally, that B flat or A sharp remains active. And I'll just mute this C because it's getting a little cluttered. All right. So these are our chord tones. These are what you would call the target notes. These are the sweet notes. You'll often hear jazz musicians talk about the sweet notes. They're really talking about chord tones of a particular scale. And these are the chord tones you want to outline during your solo. So above, I'm playing the C, B flat, G, F. All right, so I have pretty much 3 chord tones that correspond to this particular chord. Now, I want to leave you guys with a technique, again, that you can apply and start building out these compelling guitar solos. So when it comes to building out a melody, or in this instance, a guitar solo, what you want to do is emphasize those chord tones. So for our C minor 7th, these are the notes we want to highlight during the solo. That doesn't mean we can't play other notes. In fact, if we were just to limit ourselves to playing the chord tones, it would sound kind of boring. So here's a technique that you can use. When you're targeting these chord tones, consider preceding them with a scale tone below it. So what does that mean? Let's take our target notes here: C, E flat, G, B flat. If I want to target the C here, I'm going to choose a scale tone below it, which would be the B flat, right? It's part of that C minor scale we've just outlined. Here it is. It's actually an octave higher, okay? And so this is the tone I am going to use to lead into that target C note, right? And then same thing for our third note here, or our minor third. if I want to precede it with a scale tone below, I'm talking about the D here. Let's go up the scale tone here. The next one would be the G. If I want to precede that with a scale tone, I'm looking at the F. And same thing finally for our B flat. If I want to precede it with a scale tone below it, I'm going to choose the A flat. All right, so these are notes that we can use to color those targeted notes. So, and if I continue, all right, so now we have a host of new notes that we can use for our solo. And this becomes very useful as we can create some really compelling lines. Let's transfer this to our guitar here. I'm just going to sort of, imagine that we're sort of riffing on this C minor 7th. All right? Those are the target notes, and we can precede them with the scale tone below. All right, let me take this an octave higher. So what am I playing here? I'm playing the B flat, the C, remember, scale tone below, above. I'm moving to the D, to the E flat, which is again another scale tone below, and I'm targeting that E flat, F, G, already that sounds way better than limiting ourselves to our scale tones, right? All right, so let's go back to our piano here. It's just a little easier to hear me speak. So what we're doing here is that we are highlighting those targeted notes with the scale tone below. To learn more about improvising, consider transcribing the guitar solos to some of your favorite guitarists. The more lines and licks you learn, the easier the art of improvisation becomes. All right, so in this example, I want to show you another technique. This one is basically approaching those same targeted notes, the C, the E flat, the G, B flat. This time we'll be preceding those targeted notes with the scale tone above. So we're going to go from a note that's higher than our target note, and we're going to drop it down. So in the context of our C minor 7th chord here, always be conscious of what the target notes are. I'll remind you again that C, E flat, G, B flat. So preceding the target notes with a scale tone above, in the context of our C, we're looking at the D here. Right? In the context of our E flat, we're looking at the F, right? Our 5th note, the G, that's our target note, but we're going to precede it with the A flat. And finally, our minor 7th, B flat here, we're going to precede it with the C. So the entire sequence would sound something like this. Right? Target notes 1, 3, 5, 7. Scale tone above. Listen to how melodic that sounds. So again, we're limiting ourselves to our target notes, but we're preceding it with the scale tone above. Now, we don't necessarily always have to follow this 1, 3, 5, 7 sequence. We can switch things around. For instance, instead of playing it in this order, I can start off with the, let's say, minor 3rd. That would be the E flat. And again, use that technique where I'm jumping above and then coming down to that E flat. So in this context, I'm looking at the F. And then instead of going up, I can go back down to the C. So I'm using 3, 1. If I want to use the 5 now, which is the G, I'd start off at the A flat, tone above or semitone above, down to the G, and then finally. All right, so let's use this in context with our guitar solo here. Again, riffing on the C chord. Scale tone above would sound like this. That's already sounding very melodic and very usable in the context of improvisation, right? So this is what this technique sounds like once we target our chord tones with a scale tone above. Right? So that's above. We just did moments ago the below technique, preceding it with a scale tone below. All right, so now we have these two techniques that we're familiar with, the below technique and the above technique, all right? So we can basically mix and match these techniques. So this is what it sounds like below and above. Okay, so now we have two techniques that we can employ in our improvisational toolkit, if you will. We can start off with the note below the target note or above. And we can mix and match this, right? Below, below, above. Right? Or let's do above, above, below, below. So above. And now below. And below. Right? The target note remains the same. We have C, E flat, G, B flat, but depending on how we're feeling, depending on the direction of the actual melody, we can choose to target that target note either above or below it. All right. I want to show you one last technique here just to sort of bring everything together. And let's go back to our piano example here. All right, still using this C minor 7th chord. And so our target notes remain the same, C, E flat, G, B. This is where things get really interesting. So we can extend that idea, the idea of preceding those target notes with one note or two. This time we're going to use 3 notes to precede those target notes. So let's focus on our C here, right? This is the target note. I'm going to play 3 notes before landing on the C. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go below, then above, then below, and then bang on to the target. All right. So in this context, our C will be preceded by the B flat. We're going to go up to the D, back down to the B flat, and then land on the target note. All right, so again, below, above, below, target. Same thing for the E flat. I'll give you a moment. You can pause the video and try to figure out which scale tones we're going to use to precede this E flat. All right, so again, we would do below, above, below again, and then the E flat. So we're playing the D, the F, the D, the E flat. Same thing with this target note here, the G. We're going to use the same idea, below, above, below, target note. So F, A flat, F, G, right? And finally, that minor 7th here, the B flat, we're using A flat, below, C above, back down to the A flat, and then finally we hit that target chord tone. All right, so in quick succession, it sounds more like. And okay, and you can repeat this an octave higher. All right, so let's take this to the guitar part here. This is what it sounds like. And again, we don't always have to follow this 1, 3, 5, 7 sequence. We can go from 1 all the way down to 5, right? Back up to 1, and then end it off with the 3. So now we have a whole bunch of techniques that we can apply. Let's do a quick recap here. We've talked about the below technique, right? When we are approaching those target notes with the scale tone below. We've done something similar with the above technique where we are approaching those same chord tones with a scale tone above. And now this final installment of this concept has us playing the note below, the note above, the note below, and then the target. So once you develop the ear for all of these techniques and you have these techniques under your fingers, and I remember Oscar Peterson saying that. Oscar Peterson was this fantastic jazz pianist. You know, he used to say that when you're learning a technique, you want to make sure that these techniques are literally under your fingers so you can recall them at a moment's notice. All right, so that's what you want to do. So that's the below, above, and then that's the above technique, and then below technique. So you can mix and match all of these techniques depending on the chords that are supporting this solo that you're doing, okay? All right, so to get better at this, you'll have to practice basically running riffs on chords. So first chord here, let's take it back to our piano. That would be our C, right? So the below technique, anytime you see a C minor 7th, you know that you can do the below technique. And it's gonna work, all right? You can do the above technique, all right? And you can use the below, above, below target technique. Then you can start alternating the order. Again, you don't have to do 1, 3, 5. We're starting on the 7th here, and then back to the tonic, and then, okay. You'll notice that certain chord tones are better when it comes to starting a melodic run. I wouldn't necessarily start my melodic runs on the minor 7th. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not really one of those sort of sweet tones, right? You'd stick to the 1, 3, 5, and occasionally the 7th, right? All right, so we've limited this example to our C minor 7th chord, but the same concept can be applied to, let's say, this A flat major 7th chord. So let's very quickly outline this here. I don't want to lose you guys. All right, that's our second chord. So first chord, C minor 7th, second chord, A flat major 7th here. Let's apply those techniques we've just learned. All right, so this A flat here, let's go ahead and write down the target notes, right? That would be the A flat, C, E flat, and then finally the G here. These are the target notes. And remember what we're going to do with our target notes here. We're going to precede them with a scale tone below, the next one above, and then below, above, below target. All right, so if I were to solo over this, I'd probably do something like this. The below technique first. So we're starting off with the G, moving to the A flat. Let me take this an octave lower so you can see it on the piano roll here. The second note would be the C. I'd start off with the B flat. Right, that's the target note, C. The next note would be the E flat. I would use the D right here, and then finally the 7th, major 7th here. I'd start off with the F. Okay. That's the below technique. The above technique, same thing. We use the same notes, A flat, C, E flat, G. We're starting off with the scale tone above. So that would be B flat down to the A flat. As for the C, we're starting above. That would be the D. As for the E flat, we're going to jump to the F. And then finally that G, we're going to start off with the A flat. Okay. And then finally, let's do the below, above, below target technique. So we're starting off with the G, B flat, G, A flat. The next note would be the C. Starting off below, that would be B flat, D, B flat, C. The next note, E flat, we're starting below, D, F, D, E flat, and then finally the G, F, A flat, F, G. So let's do this in the guitar MIDI clip just for context. So this is our second chord. The below technique, that's literally what it sounds like. Let's do the above technique. And now let's do the below, above, below target technique. So now that we have these three techniques under our fingers, we can begin to mix and match and use all of them during a guitar solo. That's below, above, below, above. That's below technique, and then that's the above technique. If you are new to the channel, thank you for hanging out and consider subscribing and liking the video. If you've been here since the very beginning, I thank you for your continued support. That being said, stay safe and I will see you next time.